So today, we are going to hear Ricky Ian Gordon read from his memoir. It is definitely worth reading if you have not read it. I read it a while ago. We interviewed Ricky via Zoom and Facebook Live, so you can find that interview on our YouTube channel. He's interesting. The book is interesting. And I knew him before he wrote books. I don't know
What?
Yeah, exactly. He had a really hot roommate.
Jim Hader?
No. And so I spent any number of nights there. And
Diane Sutherland.
yes. And my favorite night there was New Year's Eve. I don't remember how many years ago, but many. And Whoopi Goldberg was on Broadway for the very first time. And when you walked out of the show, you were almost in Times Square, which was loaded with millions of people waiting for the ball to drop. And I went up to the West Side and to their apartment, and they were having a party, and it was just an amazing night. And I'm still waiting for that day when I wear a men's white shirt and run around my apartment and talk about my long, beautiful blonde hair, as Whoopi Goldberg did in that show. But Ricky's memoir touches on so many amazing things, including just recognizing what being gay is. And both the difficulties and the freedom of just being who you are. And you were sort of lucky with the family that you had, and sort of not lucky with the family that you had. Sort of at the same time, depending on which direction you were facing it.
Right.
But he had unique relationships with his sister's boyfriends, husbands. Not things that normally happen in people's lives. And so I want him to read to you so that you get this flavor. I don't want him to read too much, because for those of you who do not have the book, you should get it. It's really fun. There were many times in my house, because I get harassed by the people I live with, I have to go into the bathroom and close the door. I would sit there for hours with this book. I didn't want to stop reading, and many times my spouse would knock on the door and say, "Are you okay?" And then my son would come and knock on the door and say, "I don't believe you're okay." But it's that captivating a book. So we're going to start now, and then this also will be recorded, and Ricky will have two things on our YouTube channel, and we'll also send this out in our newsletter so that other people can hear how wonderful this first book is.
Thanks, Robert. I think first I'm just going to tell everybody how the book came about.
You can do that.
Can I do that? I'm going to stand for this part. So this was on March 12th, 2020. I was at Lincoln Center. I had an opera about to open called Intimate Apparel. It was commissioned by the Met and Lincoln Center Theater. And we were going to open on March 23rd. And then I had another opera that was for New York City Opera, an opera of Garden of the Fiends and Continies. But on the March 12th, every theater in New York closed. And Kevin, my partner, and I, we went upstate thinking we'd be up, because Lincoln Center said, we'll probably reconvene in 2 weeks. So we went upstate and did not reconvene in 2 weeks. And while I was up there, and once I sort of caught wind of the fact that we were going to be there a long time, I decided I needed to do something other than write music. And I have a lot of friends who are writers and poets, and I decided to start. I have a friend who's a poet, Marie Howe, who actually just won the Pulitzer Prize this year. But I said, Marie, what do you think about starting a writing group? And she thought it was a great idea. So we went to all our writer friends, and we started meeting every Friday at 4. And I just thought I was going to be the dummy in the group. And that was fine, because for me it was just an imperative to write. So, and these people would bring like magnificent poems. Every single person in the group got a book out of it. Every single one of them. But I really did not think anything would happen for me other than, but the one thing I will say was that I am so impressed by these writers. I did want to find a way. I wanted to test them. I wanted to see what it would be like. How deeply could I allow myself to be known? That was my experiment. And so I thought, I'm going to experiment with being as intimate as I've ever been, because I do know these people and I trust them. So after a very short time, I felt like they would bring in like a poem that filled a half page, and I would have 30 pages of prose. And one day, one of the writers was a guy named Nick Flynn. And Nick was well known. He wrote a memoir called Another Bullshit Night in Suck City, which was turned into a movie called Becoming Flynn, where Robert De Niro played his father. Anyway, Nick one day talked about the energy of the writing. And I thought, I'm going to do something really dangerous. For one thing, I read my horoscope, and it was February, and it said, this is like the best month of your life. So right before, about a year before this, I had met Jonathan Galassi, who was my favorite editor at Farrar, Straus and Giroux. And I decided to write him and send him a couple of chapters. And I just said, I'm doing this thing with this writing group. You don't even have to read this. But if you do, I will say it's probably unlike any other composer memoir you have read. And he wrote me back, and he said something really great. He said, there's something here, and I would just suggest you keep going. Let it find its shape. He said, I'd love to send you a book that we just published. And it was John Giorno, the Beat Poet's memoir. And I read that book in a couple of weeks, and I wrote Jonathan about that book, what I thought, and I sent him 2 more chapters of mine. And he immediately wrote me back and said, well, now I've read everything. And he said, I want to publish this book. And I really nearly fell over, because he said, call me, let's talk, T-A-W-K. So I called him the next morning. He said, you need a literary agent. I got this literary agent. Her name was Lori Liss. She was Rachel Maddow's literary agent. I was on unemployment, and suddenly all I could say is that I ran up to our bedroom screaming, telling Kevin, you cannot believe what he's going to pay me to write, because I would have paid them. So it was an amazing moment in my life. And then the book just flew out of me. So that's how this book came about. So it's always hard to, I never feel like I picked the right things to read. So I told Robert, if he misses something, he can just call it out. But I'll just start by, see, I like standing up. So I'll start with a little bit of the prologue. And here, so, Seeing Through, a Chronicle of Sex, Drugs, and Opera. The reason it's called...
Yeah, you gotta move back, because
Oh!
you're on
cut off.
camera.
I got you. Do you want, so I'll just...
You should probably
Is it
sit.
better to sit?
Probably.
Okay. All right. So the book is called Seeing Through because the epigraph of the book is a line of poetry by Brenda Hillman. And that line is, the job of the living is to be seen through. Prologue. There is a Native American adage that says there are 2 wolves inside you. You have to decide which one you are going to starve and which one you are going to feed. From the very beginning, there have always been 2 stories of my life being written side by side. At the age of 33, I knew I had a decision to make. My dream of being a composer and create a meaningful body of work, like all the greatest artists I admired, was a big one. I knew I was either going to feed that wolf or lean toward the profligate I was becoming. One of my stories is about a little boy looking for a father with a button inside. When pressed, it says, "This person is going to make you feel complete, whole. They will fill the abyss in you. They will relieve you of the constant gnawing pain that makes you feel empty, unloved, and unsafe." But there's another story, that if you're important, if you are doing something necessary and meaningful with your life, this triggers my feelings of unworthiness and confirms my fantasy that being necessary and meaningful has always been a clear, straight, easy line for you. Of course, you were a good student, you read a lot, you always knew what you were going to do with your life. If you were a man, you loved women, you loved your father and he loved you. You played baseball with your father, went fishing, climbed mountains and hiked together. You went to classes, studied, did your homework, graduated, got a master's degree, dined with your family and discussed with civility what was on your mind. You went to bed feeling full and satisfied. You were good with the world and it was good with you. You felt comfortable in your body, even liked it, and you were probably fairly confident of what tomorrow would bring. This has never been my experience. I have sat through countless meals where deadly secrets were eating at my brain like bees, making it impossible to communicate. I have been smothered by my insecurities. All during the meal, I've imagined, how can I get you into bed? You might have been hypothesizing about all the theorems and solutions you've come up with, your studies, your rites and rituals, the body of knowledge that is yours. Every word was a dart, and each puncture was a further diminishment. If all the people I have sat across the table from knew how often I felt terrible about myself, how alienated in their company, they would be shocked. What has been keeping me alive? Music. Music was when my house was emptied of its smoldering anger, frustration, and fear, and it was when I was happy. Some of my most joyous memories were when Lorraine and Susan, the oldest of my 3 older sisters, would both get out their guitars and sing all kinds of folk songs by Pete Seeger, Dave Van Rank, Joan Baez, the Red Clay Ramblers, the Weavers, Peter, Paul and Mary, the Kingston Trio, Phil Oakes, and of course, Bob Dylan, whom Lorraine shared a bottle of wine with when he was Robert Zinnemann down at the bitter end. She said, "You knew he was going to be something." Music was doing what it was supposed to do, creating community, breaking down walls, melting hearts. My father anomalously would beam with pride like he loved his family and his life. The sarcastic sneer would disappear from his face, the opposition to anything and everything, and no one fought or hated each other. He even seemed to either not comprehend or ignore the lyrics to the songs that often expressed everything he was opposed to. My mother's face would relax with the temporary abatement of potential mayhem, and the highly unusual feeling that all was well charged the particles and fell over the room like light snow. My father complained that he had moved his family out of the Bronx to get away from the city, and now all they ever wanted to do was get back into the city. But if they hadn't, he wouldn't have had these cascades of music, these beatific oases in our house. We had a piano, a Krakauer upright. At the age of 5, after hearing my sister Lorraine practice a sonatina by Clementi, I sat down and played the piece by ear. So I was sent for lessons with Mrs. Fox. There were 2 piano teachers in Harbor Isle, Mrs. Fox, who was more for the beginners, and Mr. Chaikin, who was more for advanced students. It was pretty much assumed you would at some point graduate from Mrs. Fox to Mr. Chaikin, and I did. Mrs. Fox slurped coffee loudly from a mug that never seemed to empty during the lesson. She dressed in beige cashmere, summer or winter, had beige skin, beige hair, and in some ways you could say she looked like a beige Shar-Pei, except for the angry eczema on her hands that was always red and raw. Mr. Chaikin drank a shot of brandy before every lesson, which meant he always had a sort of intoxicating sweet breath. One day my mother was taking me to pick up my sister Sheila, the younger sister, from her piano lesson at Mrs. Fox's. I heard some crunchy, crispy chords moving around in unexpected ways like I had never heard before. Someone was playing a sonatina by Dmitri Kabalevsky, a 20th century Russian composer. I remember staring up into the light as if I were Julian Bastien Lepage's Joan of Arc, hearing voices. The music was saying something to me about who I was, what I was supposed to do with my life. I felt a calling. Music is the cause of my joy in life, as well as much of my unhappiness. Sometimes it's a bed of nails, at others a field of clouds. Words too, poetry, art, people who make art, who suffer as I do, who feel as bad about themselves as I do, but still insist on making something out of it. Nothing in me is a straight line. I have always been a hodgepodge, an assemblage of qualities I thought I was supposed to have, but always hidden in any performance of myself. The masquerade was the stronger impulse to make something beautiful. This is the lens through which I am asking you to read this book, and by association, my life, a life that comes out of chaos. Toni Morrison begins her noble lecture with, "Once upon a time," because in the end, it's all about stories, isn't it? What we share with one another. So that's some of the prologue, and then I'll see.
Do you have marked off you're standing outside Stephen Sondheim's place?
Oh, I could totally do that.
I mean, I think it's a good juxtaposition. You talk about looking for a father and
Yes,
all of
I'll
that,
totally
and-
go to the Sondheim chapter. See, that's what I mean. You tell me. So Stephen Sondheim, 280. Hold on. So this is a little bit of the Stephen Sondheim story, which was, if I knew then what I know now, Stephen Sondheim. There's an epigraph to the chapter. I said to Mary Gettle, well, if I am going to alienate one composer, it might as well be America's premier composer. I got off on the wrong foot with Stephen Sondheim right from the start, and I never quite got back on the right one. When he died suddenly on November 26, 2021, I felt something between nothing and relief. My friend Michael Klein texted everyone in my writing group. Devastating news for so many people. Stephen Sondheim died suddenly, apparently. 3 crying emojis. We won't be hearing from that kind anymore, and not very soon again, I think. At first, I felt irritation. There's Michael with an announcement and a pronouncement all at once, as if he knows everyone and everything out there and the last word has been spoken. I had been hoping on some level he would be around when I published my book. Did I kill him? I was trying to grapple with something so large happening when all of a sudden Facebook became extremely crowded with everyone's reminiscences, photos of notes he sent them, his famous typed notes with his gorgeous signature, or photos of them with him, his kind smile, their arms around one another, everyone greedily claiming their memories of him, their connections with him, their feelings about him. 5 minutes after they had found out, it felt like me instead of him. But how should it have been? Who am I to say how anyone should deal with anything? But it still feels like a preponderance, a wave of self-importance. My relationship with him since the very first time we met was so fraught, I thought the news would make me happy. It didn't. I felt strange and oddly sick all night. Suddenly, in all the photos of him everyone was posting, I saw tenderness, vulnerability, instead of meanness and his ability to hurt me. I woke up this morning to Yvonne DiCarlo in my head singing "I'm Still Here" as she first sang it in Follies. I knew all the words as I do hundreds of his songs. I thought of my little carriage house in Pittsburgh when I was at CMU, where I played the record of Pacific Overtures obsessively because that was the year it came out. Stephen Sondheim came flooding back to me. I better go to where... Okay. where I'm standing outside.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, right, sorry.
That's okay.
I didn't designate this, Robert, so now I have to find it. Okay. All right. Okay. Starting with the little party that I was invited to at his house. Okay. In the summer of 1976, America's bicentennial, Pacific Overtures is playing, and I'm obsessed with it. Recognizing some of Sondheim's influences makes it even richer. I recognize elements from the great Japanese film director Kenji Mizoguchi's masterpiece, Ugetsu, and I am transported straight back to my childhood when the huge ship unfolds on stage like origami. I get a job for my summer vacation. There is a new Italian restaurant in Greenwich Village called Alfredo Settebello on 7th Avenue, where I am a waiter during the day and the pianist at cocktail hour. My boss is Alfredo Viazzi, famous for bringing northern Italian cuisine, things like pesto and white sauces instead of red, to America. He is married to Jane White, who makes me play her Chopin's Raindrop Prelude every night after dinner. I have gotten her a Campari and soda. I put it together upon hearing her first distinctive voice, that she was the Madam in Clute, starring Jane Fonda, and Queen Agravarian in the musical Once Upon a Mattress, starring Carol Burnett, and I worship her accordingly. Someone tells me that she is a black woman masquerading as white, which, due to her imperious carriage and the way she enunciates, only adds to her allure. I live with my parents at the boatyard, and I commute to and from my work. My mother is trying to lose weight that summer using diet drops, which are unbelievably powerful, like crystal meth, and she is unknowingly sharing them with me. Whenever she takes her shower, I add a few to my coffee, so I often refer to the summer of 1976 as my health and beauty summer, because when I am not at Alfredo Settebello's, I am jogging around Harbor Isle, starving myself, doing countless push-ups and sit-ups, and hennaing my hair. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead. Oh, my friend from Carnegie Mellon, Cheryl Utsunomiya, who is now Kim Miori, having changed her name after being cast as Yoko Ono in a movie about John and Yoko, lands a job in Pacific Overtures right out of college. Kim and I became close friends, having both had our hearts broken by Don Simeone, another story. One day, Kim drops by the restaurant during cocktail hour to tell me she is taking me to a cash party at Stephen Sondheim's home. I am overwhelmed with gratitude, and I can barely get through the rest of the night. When she leaves, I play only Sondheim for the rest of the evening, starting with You Must Meet My Wife from A Little Night Music. The day of the party, I decide on a skin-tight maroon cotton turtleneck and jeans, which I think make me look sexy. I know I am in for a star-studded evening. Maybe I will even have sex with someone famous. When I arrive, Sondheim answers the door. I am in an instant state of shock. He is almost handsome in a bedraggled, gravity-ravaged sort of way, but I am instantly drawn to him. I see Angela Lansbury, Hal Prince, Joel Grey, and Anthony Perkins, a.k.a. Norman Bates from Psycho, across the room, and I think, I need alcohol. I love the story of Jane Bowles wearing a sundress and espadrilles, taking a train from Santa Fe to New York with a little thought of what the weather in the East might be. The train has to stop in Philadelphia because of a huge blizzard. Disembarking from the train in her summer garb, she approaches a police officer and asks, "Excuse me, officer, can you direct me to the nearest cocktail center?" I ask the bartender to just fill a glass with scotch. I guzzle 2 such glasses, and within the hour, I am half walking, half careening, and Stephen Sondheim is taking us on a tour of his house. By now, we are in his famed game room, and my head starts to spin. I have to excuse myself to go vomit so violently, Kim has to peel me off the floor of his bathroom, get me into a cab to Penn Station, accompany me home to Island Park, and sleep over at the boatyard because we get home so late. All right, now I'm going to fast forward. I am 25, living in New York City, and Stephen Sondheim has a new show, Merrily We Roll Along. Excitedly, I buy a ticket to the first preview, which I think is the first show, knowing nothing about how a Broadway show is created. The overture is big and brassy, an unfamiliar sound for Sondheim, but exciting, heralding great things. The show begins. All the characters are dressed in sweatshirts with the names of their characters printed on them in big letters. Everyone has lockers in what looks like high school locker room. They are all young, but they are playing old, jaded cynics at the top of the show, which they are not necessarily equipped to do, and it feels forced and awkward. Then it moves backward in time, and they get younger, which they are better at, but something feels really off about the evening. It is hard to follow, and people are leaving in droves. I have to admit I am so confused I tune out, and when it is over, I too leave the theater totally mystified. I dismiss it, but I am too young to have a community I can go out and trumpet my disapproval to. I just think, wow, Stephen Sondheim, my idol, has a new show and I don't like it. From the word on the street, apparently the show is not getting better and the views aren't great. But I only say that in hindsight because I was not yet someone in the throes of the nightmare called caring about reviews or even reading them. This only started happening when I myself was one of the dreaded reviewed. Then the original cast recording comes out and I am astonished, stunned, beside myself with love. How did I not hear this in the theater? I don't even remember this. It's as if what I saw on stage that night deafened me to the beauty and the genius of the score. I am cleaning in houses for a living and running lunches to offices for fast food restaurants. I have the work life of an addict with low self-esteem, unmoored and rudderless, ending up where I end up, which feels like nowhere. I get a job with a temp agency called Lend a Hand. They send you to clean people's homes with a tacit agreement that something else might occur. For that reason, people refer to it as Lend-a-Boy. I have a client whose house is filthy, uncleanable, but all he wants to do is suck my toes and jerk off. He is plump and pasty, a sort of low-rent Truman Capote, but he pays me double, so I am game. Occasionally, I even grab his dick for him, which is like a clotted little blood sausage. He takes me out for dinner and invites me to Guadalajara. Okay, I'm going to skip ahead. Gotta read that. Okay, so on the day of the one day, I write Sondheim a letter. I recount in vivid detail my calamitous attendance at his Pacific Overtures party. I laud him for his magnificent score of Merrily We Roll Along and tell him I clean an office across the street from him every day and stalk his home. I tell him he is talented and to keep up the good work. I don't tell him about the cocaine just in case he wants it back. One day in the snow, I found a gram of cocaine right in front of his house, and I went home and snorted the whole thing, and it was the best cocaine I've ever snorted in my life. He writes back immediately, sorry about my hilarious misfortunes at his party, gives me his number, and invites me over for drinks. A second chance. This time I won't fuck it up. On the day of the visit, I pick a new olive green suit I bought at a funky, expensive clothing store on 72nd Street called Stone Free. I want to look just right. I'm thinking business attire, official adult, because, well, I don't want to end up in bed or in some highly equipped S&M dungeon he supposedly had in his basement that I've heard rumors of, though it has never been authenticated. I try to look handsome with an official vibe. I stop for a beer at a bar on 2nd Avenue near his house because I am nervous and need some loosening up. When I get there, after a small wait in his living room, I half remember filled with all those celebrities before I got sick in 1976. He ushers me upstairs to an outdoor terrace. I imagine Katharine Hepburn next door when she famously marched over to his house one night and admonished him for making too much noise. I start drinking wine. He is drinking Kiers and smoking pot. We are having a lovely time. I think about smoking pot with him, but for once in my life I listen to my inner logic and think better of it, lest I have a recurrence of my bad acid trip and freak out. I feel comfortable thanks to liquid courage, and this conversation is flowing amazingly well. I am fulfilling a deep fantasy conversing with my hero. Only a meeting with Stravinsky, I tell him, would be equivalent. We have both seen the recent opera Satyagraha by Philip Glass at BAM and liked it very much, so this is a big topic. Finally, feeling capacious and lubricated, I ask almost salaciously, so whatever happened with Merrily We Roll Along? I was fishing for gossip. I thought our bright and breezy conversation, our insouciance, entitled me to the insider's view. When did you see it, he asks. I catch a glimpse of something scary and dangerous behind his eyes. I try to ignore it. The first preview, I say, though even as I am saying it, it feels wrong coming out of my mouth. An Arctic chill blows across the terrace like the ghost of Christmas past. His face drops. His movements become anxious and clipped, hands playing awkwardly with his pockets, and he abruptly storms off the terrace. Whoa, what just happened, I think. I wait a long time while in a state of anxious vigilance, but he doesn't come back. Did he have to go to the bathroom? I don't know what to do. I walk off the terrace into his library. I am thinking, is this really happening? Is Stephen Sondheim mad at me? Have I done something wrong? He rushes in like a tsunami, and amid a mass of angry half-sentences I can't decipher because I am scared, devastated, and completely freaked out that Stephen Sondheim is yelling at me, looking as if he wants to kill me. I hear him say, "People like you are why I am leaving the theater." Suddenly, I gather myself, accessing my inner, seething from birth rage. What? And grasping deep inside for some line of defense, I scream, "People like me see everything you write 6 times. 6 times! If you don't write for people like me, I don't know who the hell you think you're writing for." But I don't have a leg to stand on. I had not gone back to Merrily. I had no idea how it progressed. I didn't know the rules. I follow him as he darts around getting ready to leave his own house, which he suddenly has to do, and it is 100% clear the party is over and has ended very badly. We are leaving his house, and I have fucked up this evening 10 times worse than I fucked up the first one. We are outside in front of his house screaming at each other, which passersby seem to be cataloging. There's Stephen Sondheim having a fight, and I am sick, very sick inside. I can't rescue the evening. It is an unmitigated disaster. There is a limo in front of his house. I say, most probably snottily, because by this point he is now my father, and we are playing out a hysterical primal scenario. Well, there's your limo. I feel as if I were out of my body and blowing up like a balloon. It isn't my limo, he spits back, and it's presumptuous of you to assume it is. I am amazed by my ability to keep digging the hole a little deeper. I don't know what to do. Awkwardly following some code that seems ridiculous now, I lean in to shake his hand, fumbling an apology, and careen off into the evening, trembling. There's a lot more to that story, but that's a big chunk of it, right? Shall I keep going? Is that it?
Go.
Oh, all right.
After the next segment of his reading, then we'll open it up to questions for a little while, and then if time
All right.
permits, we'll go back to reading some more.
I just thought this would be fun, you guys. This is like literally 2 paragraphs. And this is just called Inauspicious Beginnings, The Grapes of Wrath. Now, is it okay to say that, Robert?
Well, you can say anything you want.
Robert Crone was are you still writing? He's fantastic.
Yes,
critic.
I am still writing. I'm
See?
88 and I'm still writing.
He's a fantastic writer. He's a critic, and he loved my opera, The Grapes of Wrath, in Pittsburgh, so I worship him. So now
Can I
Robert-
say something?
Yes.
You also wrote a song when my cousin died, which I still tear up over.
Really?
Janet, when Amy's sister died.
Oh my God, when Amy's sister died.
And
Robert,
I've never heard a performance of that song. I have the score, the music. Someday before I die, I want to hear that song.
Robert, I'll send you. I at least have a recording of me singing it that I recorded.
Oh,
I'll
I
send
recorded.
that to you. But this is probably something you don't know about the Grapes of Wrath. The night that Dale Johnson and Floyd Anderson, the artistic director and the artist's relation and planning director of Minnesota Opera, came to New York to talk to me about writing an opera based on the Grapes of Wrath, I needed to look my best, and I had to make up a story in order to be home by 10, because I had hired a black hustler to come over for my very first paid sex experience, and that excited me more than writing an opera based on the Steinbeck classic, which only made me want to vomit and scream, "I can't!" into the heavens and beg God to kill me before I had to do it. I lied twice. The second lie was that I told him I had to reread the book when I had never read it. When my buzzer rang at 10, I began to get nervous, sweaty nervous. He walked in, and he was not my type at all. As we've already established, I have father issues. This guy looked like one in his photo, but in real life he was very delicate and somewhat effeminate, and I was turned off right away, or at least my fantasy was dashed. He was pretty, not rugged handsome the way he looked in his particularly straight acting photo for someone who was quite the contrary. But he was nice and experienced and could see what was going on immediately. We had a lovely chat, and he left without even making me pay, which to this day I find amazing. So it was sex on spec. Now, that's a good businessman. He even told me, "You're so cute. Where you been hiding yourself?" Thinking about it now, I'm surprised we didn't go out for herb tea. You guys, there's too much, so I think I'll just start. I'll read you this little thing, and then I'll read you a poem, and then I'll stop. It's a big book. The truth is, just by the way, when I handed it in to John Galassi, it was 800 single-spaced pages. No kidding. And Jonathan was like, "You have to cut this in half." And I have to give it to him. He never told me what to cut. He just said half. I suppose in a circuitous way this book is about the making of an artist. If we are lucky, what happens to each of us makes our eyes dart around in different directions, landing on whatever it is that heals us, because inevitably we have been broken and damaged. Every day I seek to find a place where I can be myself, where I don't have to make excuses for my taste, where my feelings are valued and I feel heard. My precocity, my anger have served me. Yes, I asked for things before I should have them. That's a chapter called 15. Whether I was a child or not, it doesn't feel right not to own at least a part of my manipulativeness. Having eaten equally from the tree of good and evil, the two wolves inside of me, whether I wanted to starve one or not, have always demanded equal attention. Shostakovich said, "Art destroys silence." And then I'm just going to end with a poem. Towards the end of the book, I wrote a poem for my mother called Yahrzeit. You all
Explain
know
what
it.
that, no, explain, because
A Yahrzeit candle. It's the Yahrzeit candle is what you light on Yom Kippur, but you also light it on Friday nights for Shabbos, for Sabbath, and you light it for the dead, and you just let it burn out. So, Yahrzeit. My mother always kept a pile of sewing in the kitchen, darning late at night when she couldn't sleep. Sipping coffee, she'd mend worn socks, torn seams, holes and knees of pants that now you'd never keep. Sew, Mama, sew, and thread the stitching through slow, so slow. Breathe, Mama, sing a song of mourning for what's long ago. My mother always kept a bag of worsted by the sofa, knitting afternoons when disquiet came. Clicking needles, she'd bring forth warm wool things, blankets, scarves, or hats from fine merino sheep. Knit, mama, knit, and pearl the yarn with your fears. Loop tears. Dream, mama, sing a song of yearning for the passing years. She knit me once a poncho when ponchos were in style. The colors were effeminate. I wore it for a while, but only out the door, and once I got within a mile, I took it off, avoiding all the rancor it would rile. She knit herself a suit once, striped gold lame and cream, adorned the cuffs with rabbit fur. It fit her like a dream. She knit a teal blue jacket, sewed crystals on the seams. They clinked when she would dance and caught the light like laser beams. My mother kept a jar of coarse and kosher salt for cooking, pinching in a dash, enhancing every dish. In youth, mama learned food comes hard earned when her father dragged and spent from smoking fish. Cook, mama, cook, imbue the stock with latent grief. Life's brief. Wish, mama, sing a song of sorrow for the falling leaf. Through busyness, my mother learned to keep at bay her crying. She vacuumed after she had pinned the laundry up for drying. She started every meal by cutting onions up for frying. For Jeffrey, she crocheted a throw for warmth when he was dying. Her loss is like an albatross and incomplete. What will I wear now? What will I eat?
Mm-hmm.
So just to say that Jeffrey was my partner who passed away from AIDS in 1996.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have a question? Anybody have a comment? There's a lot in there.
Well,
Yes,
one
ma'am.
thing is that, as I read the book a while ago, but the second half of the book is all about your operas, and that's
Yes.
not anything that you really talked about. And your operas are so great. I haven't seen them all, and I wish I could see more of them. But the ones that I know, I love your Orpheus. That
Oh.
little Orpheus opera. It's more of a song cycle than an opera.
So you gave a review when I did Orpheus and Eurydice, Green Sneakers, in one night at Pittsburgh Opera, and your review was called Two Superb Mini Operas.
Yeah, I don't even remember.
I do.
No,
Yes.
that was a beautiful work. That it was just, and one of my favorite things in the whole world is Gluck's Orfeo. I think there's nothing in the world more beautiful than Che Farò.
It's
I wanted it at my
exquisite
funeral.
with Janet Baker. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Well,
Kathleen
the truth
Ferrier.
is, Robert, it's hard to pick what to read. There's just, and even I had so many other things chosen, but there's never enough time to read what I picked. And this one requests Stephen Sondheim, so I had to read from that.
Oh, that was a
chapter.
wonderful part of it.
Oh,
yeah.
good. Okay, good.
What's your favorite of all your operas? What do you think is your greatest work?
Okay, I have, and this is being honest. I really feel like they're all my children, and so each one is
Yeah.
cut from my flesh. I really do, and so I don't have a favorite, but each one has a special meaning to me. And for example, Green Sneakers, which is one of those
Yeah.
mini operas which I wrote after Jeffrey died, is the first time I wrote anything that was so breathtakingly honest and presented it as a piece of theater. So it has meaning to me because the day before we were going to premiere it, we were premiering it at Bravo Vale Valley Music Festival, and the critic, whose name was Wes Blomster,
Yeah, I know Wes Blanc.
Wes.
He's dead.
yes, he came to the dress rehearsal, and when the dress rehearsal was over, he was shaking and sobbing, and I had to go hold him for about a half hour. And it was a very strange feeling seeing the impact of me pouring my life into something and seeing how it affected him. and that happened the night we did it at Pittsburgh Opera. Remember, I was sitting next to one of the pianist's boyfriends, and he started sobbing during it, and I put my hand around him. So I don't know, that has a particular, but I love, Robert, I say it in the book, and I mean it. There's so many things I hate about myself, but I love my work. I do think I think my work is beautiful. I can say that unabashedly.
It is.
Thank you.
What are you working on now?
Now, okay, so Michael, I just premiered a big opera at Opera Theater St. Louis. It was for the 50th anniversary of the opera company, and it was, when I did Intimate Apparel for Lincoln Center, it was with the playwright Lynn Nottage, who has won 2 Pulitzers and a Genius Award. She's an incredible African-American playwright. So, this was our second opera, and it was called This House, and we wrote it with her daughter, Ruby, and it's about a house in Harlem through a century. So it went really well, and now we're preparing it for Seattle Opera, and then Atlanta Opera is commissioning Driving Miss Daisy from me.
Oh,
how
interesting.
wonderful.
Yes. So, and right now, while I'm in Florida, I'm orchestrating all these songs for Nathan Gunn, the baritone, and it's really interesting because I'm orchestrating them for wind band, and it's such a weird combination, and it's sort of very thrilling and strange to not have any strings. So, because strings cover a multitude of sins, winds do not.
So when will he be, is he recording it or is he performing it?
We're doing them, I think next year, and he'll record them, but they're paying me really well for them, so that's why I'm doing them right now. I have to get it out of the way. Yeah. And that's a good one.
Just curious, did you have any further encounters with Stephen Sondheim? Did you ever reconcile or?
So, yes, okay, and it's just funny that Kevin, my beloved, so one night, cause Stephen Sondheim and I basically had the most fucking complicated relationship forever. I have a pile of snotty, miserable little notes from him, okay? including a book came out about my family in 1992. It was called Home Fires. This book got a lot of press. We were on every TV show, and Mary Gettle, which is why I started
Well, see who she is, because you've mentioned
Mary
her.
Gettle is Mary Rogers, Richard Rogers' daughter, and she ended up writing Freaky Friday and Once Upon a Mattress. She was a good friend, and she was mischievous. She was a little Till Eulenspiegel. And she said to me when she read Home Fires, she loved it, and she goes, "You gotta send it to Steve, he'll love that chapter." There was a chapter on him in that book, too. And I said, "Are you sure?" She goes, "Oh, he'll love it." He was so mad. He wrote Don Katz, the author, who after he wrote Home Fires, started Audible.com. That's Don Katz. He wrote Don Katz a 2-page, very unhappy letter. So, anyway, but the way that story ends, years later, a pianist named Anthony DeMare commissions all these composers to take a Stephen Sondheim song and do a piano arrangement of it, but literally write a classical piano piece based on one of his songs. My favorite song of Stephen Sondheim's has always been Every Day a Little Death. I was asked by the poet Robert Creeley to address the American Poetry Society on why Stephen Sondheim was a poet, and that was the lyric I dissected. So I was the first person to say yes to the project and to write my piece because I was afraid someone would steal it. So the night of the concert at the Symphony Space, of course, Steve was there, and all us composers, and my piece was second. It was right after Bill Bolcom's, and we were all being interviewed on the stage, and I was wearing my favorite. I have this fantastic red hat that I bought with Kevin in Boston, and so then we were all interviewed on the stage with Steve. afterwards there's a party at a bar, and Kevin and I are standing at the bar, and Steve is like standing at the bar by himself. So I said, Steve, come here. And he comes over, and he's very jocular. And he goes, I won't talk to you unless you take that hat off. So I said, I took the hat off, and then I felt like, you know what, he was so sort of obnoxious and wonderfully funny that night. I thought, we're good, it's over. And then after that, you know, because Kevin and I would go to Hal Prince's music Christmas party every year, and Steve would be at the piano. We'd all stand and sing Christmas carols at that party. It was really fun. So it ended okay, but believe me, it was really awkward, including, by the way, I won the Stephen Sondheim Award. I won the Richard Rodgers Award that he gave. Like, it was very awkward, but I don't know what to say, and it's just, I really, and the thing is, one thing I talk about in that chapter that I don't end up getting to is, of course, years later, I write a show in New York that I was so proud of. It was based on Proust, and it starred Kelly O'Hara. It was called My Life with Albertine. It's recorded. To this day, I think it's one of the most beautiful things I ever wrote. But critics were mean about it, and I had two friends that came to the first preview and were horrible after the first preview. And only now do I realize that the first preview is a catastrophe. Nothing is ready. It's the first time it's getting on the stage. The choreography isn't ready. The orchestrations aren't ready. It's the first time everyone even is trying their staging. It's like if you go to, and right now, people go to a first preview and then report its flaws on the internet and destroy the show forever. I mean, if you only, it's like the first preview of, you know, that show Kristen is in now,
Yes.
the Stephen Schwartz show. Okay, I don't know whether it's good or bad, but oh my God, after those first previews, you would have thought that an atom bomb had fallen on you. So I know now, it's called the
Queen
of Versailles.
Oh,
Queen of
yeah.
Versailles. So now I know it's a horrible thing to do is judge a show at the first preview. And so I talk about, that's why it's called If I Knew Now What I Knew Then. And I come clean. But when Don Katz wrote Home Fires, I was still seeing that story through the lens of Stephen Sondheim was fucking crazy that night. And that this is only, finally I was asked to write a huge article for the Stephen Sondheim Journal, and I wrote this story for that journal and said, like, I get it now. It just took me 90 years to finally figure it out. So that's that, yeah. There's also there's stories about Joni Mitchell in the book, because when I was a little boy, my sister Susan was a big journalist for the New York Times. She was the first journalist to write about Joni Mitchell for the New York Times. And I was a little boy, and she said, you have to hear this singer, Joni Mitchell. And I heard her, and I became so obsessed with her. My sister gave me her address. And I started writing her and sending her gifts. One day I got this fantastic letter from her that's framed, and it's over my piano. When she was going to do her first big concert at Carnegie Hall, I made her a dress. It is literally, I was brilliant at embroidery, and this dress was embroidered from head to toe with sunsets and butterflies and you know, so like it's a great story. So that's, and I have a story about Laura Nero. There's a lot of those people show up, but Robert's right. I also, because Robert, what happened was, when I showed it to Jonathan Galassi, the book hadn't taken shape yet. I just sent him like a lot of random chapters, and he's the one that said, it feels like it's about, you know, sex, drugs, and music. So hence, seeing through a chronicle of sex, drugs, and opera. But that's what was great about him. He's a great editor. He totally leaves you alone. But every once in a while, he'll say one incredible thing that steers you in the right direction. And here's Robert Gottlieb's editor, you know. That was a big answer to a question no one asked. Anyone else?
Someone has to say something.
Well,
Well then,
what?
read something, since the music is part of it, and really touch on anything. Let's see.
Read.
Do something from your first
I might,
commission from St. Louis.
well, you know what? I might read, Robert, I really wanted to read. Oh, well, I wrote a little chapter on Stravinsky, and then I just write an afterthought. I'll just write this afterthought. If I try to go into writing my pieces, but this is something that felt very deep in terms of me writing about composition. And I know the day I sent it to Jonathan, he liked this little piece of writing. So it's just called Afterthought. It feels very honest, okay? I don't know why. Some may say, will or already have. It's a lack of talent or education, but always accompanying my life of being a composer has been a fantasy of leaving it behind. The pain, not the fun part, not the having written, and the seeing and hearing my works performed, not the engagement with people who are making my music, the creating of community that forms after you have spent all that time alone in a room writing it. There is so much good. But the painful part, every time I hear music, any, thinking it's good or bad, or I could do it, or I couldn't do it, watching movies or TV, hearing the incidental music, and either indicting myself or patting myself on the back, pretty much all the music I hear is an invitation to either like myself at its expense or loathe myself in the face of it. I don't know where this comes from. My fantasy is if I went to Harvard and knew everything there is to know about music, if I could even tell you right now what a Neapolitan sixth chord was, if I could play every instrument and knew its ins and outs as well as I know the back of my hand, if I could analyze every piece of music ever written with an encyclopedic mind, if I had perfect pitch, if I had done my homework, if I had read all of Shakespeare, Tolstoy, and Proust, if I could basically just start over, start from scratch, never drink, never take drugs, never have sex with men so early in my life that sex became a priority over everything, education, morality, spirituality, if I could wash away the sins, everything that has ever gotten in the way of my essential being, swimming toward my essential beauty, the light that is mine. But my story is like those little alligators hatching from their shells with nothing but an instinct to make it to the water, unaware of the dangers that will most probably prevent them from getting to it. I made it to the water without getting eaten, which is something to be grateful for. And I have definitely gotten to do much of the time, at least since the age of 33, what I love, or at least what most interests me, what I most want to be good at. But what threatens all of it, and I mention it only in case you feel the same way, if it helps you to know, is self-doubt. I'm not sure I'm any good, and I could name scads of others who are better, but I won't, because that would be too self-destructive. Do I really need to give you the opportunity to decide I am right? And I haven't been entirely dishonest about my envy in this book, but at my best moments, when the clouds part temporarily, when the meds are working, when I have just meditated and for a moment there is nothing in me but silence, wind, and maybe even God's love, I can tell you this: I see genuine beauty in what I have made, genuine beauty out of the shards of glass that are my life.
So, with everything that you went through, with all the people that you've known, with what happened to Jeffrey, what happened to Daniel, how do you feel about still being alive?
I mean, you know, that's the thing is, of course, for so long you have a kind of survivor's guilt, right? How on earth did I not get it? It's not like I wasn't promiscuous, you know, but now I would say, and it's the same thing, when I'm healthy, I feel like I have to do what I do because I'm one of the lucky ones that lived, and I have to contribute. You know, and it's interesting, Robert, because recently, just very recently, The Grapes of Wrath is being done at all these universities, and it was just exquisitely done at Michigan State University. And of course, one of the things that made it exquisite, and I was there to coach them through the entire thing, was its cogency, its pertinence, its importance in the world. It's just as important now as it was when it was written. And it just felt like, you know, who knew that I, this little Jew from Long Island, would be asked to write The Grapes of Wrath, you know what I mean? But there I was, and this opera's legacy, the legacy of Steinbeck being born through my music, felt so important. And that's what I feel I have to do, is I have to say something about the world I live in, because I'm lucky enough to still be living in it.
Good.
Yes.
It's been a long time since I heard the Grapes of Wrath, but there was a long solo for Mrs. Joad, the mezzo,
Yes.
and to me that was one of the most beautiful things you ever wrote. Well, I haven't heard all your music, but
That is, you know, it took 2 years to
It's-
get the rights from the Steinbeck estate. And the only thing we made up in The Grapes of Wrath, the only thing we invented, was when Michael Corey, the librettist, and I read the book, we did not like that Steinbeck takes the older son, Noah, who is slow. He's slow from birth. And he has him at one point just walking into the river and walking down the river and disappearing. Michael and I didn't like that he didn't give Noah a death and that we never hear from him again. We give Noah a huge death, a drowning scene, where Ma Jode asks him to go to the river, and she says, for once, Noah, just once in your life, learn how to help your family. And he goes to the creek, and it's night, and Ma Jode wants him to collect water in a bucket, but he figures out if he fills the bucket with stones and drowns himself, he'll be one less mouth to feed, and that's how he'll help his family. And his dying memory, as he's drowning, is Ma Jode cradling him as a child, and Ma Jode comes out in a young, much less careworn fashion. She's younger, and she sings a lullaby.
you had a
called Simple
wonderful
Child.
mezzo. I can't think of her name.
Her name was Deanne Meek. Oh, but it was Elizabeth Bishop. in
Elizabeth
Pittsburgh.
Bishop.
She was
Yeah, she's a wonderful
fantastic.
singer.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
Elizabeth Bishop.
And
So,
since you're in a gay library,
yes.
and Gertrude Stein
Oh,
is legendary,
yes.
talk about that opera.
All right, but you also have to let me know when you've really had enough of hearing my voice. But I'll just say this: my first commission from Opera Theater St. Louis was they asked me to write an opera for the great mezzo-soprano Stephanie Blythe, who really had, I would probably say, there has been no mezzo-soprano in the history of the world that had a bigger voice. I am not being hyperbolic. Her voice made the Met feel constrained and small, and that's a 4,000 seat house. So Jim Robinson, the artistic director of Opera Theater St. Louis, called me and said, we want to commission you to write an opera for Stephanie Blythe. Immediately I said, Gertrude Stein, because Stephanie is a big woman who does not enter a room without presiding. She is a great storyteller. She is a raconteur, and she's very powerful, and nobody gets more attention than her if she's in the room. And I just thought, Gertrude Stein, I mean, it's a perfect, that's it. And then Jim Robinson, for some reason, went off on this tangent and decided it should be an opera about this horrible serial murderer named Belle Gunness. And I was like, okay, I really want this commission, so if you want an opera about Belle Gunness. But I sort of knew. I had Stephanie over one Sunday, and I even convinced her that, believe me, she's really interesting, but that night she read the book I gave her, and she calls me up at about midnight and says, you know what? I don't think this woman deserves an opera. And I was like, good, because now we can go back to Gertrude Stein. And I wrote an opera I was really proud of, where Stephanie, you liked that one too. It was Stephanie was Gertrude Stein and Elizabeth Futrell, who was also a dear friend. Opera News did a story about my muse, and it was Elizabeth. And Elizabeth was Alice Bitoklas, and it was called 27 because it takes place at 27 Rue de Fleurus. And by the way, in terms of always commenting on the life I'm living, that was the big topic that year was gay marriage. So, and I thought of that to me is the greatest marriage of the 20th century. Is that good?
That was good.
Okay.
So there's still food over there. Thank you for reading. Thank
My
you for
pleasure.
talking.
Yeah.
And he'll stay around for a little while anyway. And so anyone who wants to talk, please talk.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, for having me.